Welcome to International Day at this 25th anniversary of the Abbotsford International Airshow. This year, in cooperation with Expo 86, we are bringing you the most spectacular air show ever held in Canada. From the world's largest aircraft to the greatest number of military aerobatic teams ever assembled, we hope that you will have an enjoyable day with us today.
The Air Demonstration Squadron starts now its display number 1444. They speed up his engines in order to start his takeoff. You'll see that after retiring out the undercarriage, the slot will quickly occupy his position between and a little behind the wings, forming the diamond. Number 7 will perform an aerobatic sequence starting from takeoff, which consists of a half loop returning upside down, flight over the runway, and I'm terribly sorry about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, the weather has played a trick on us here that we certainly weren't expecting. Ladies and gentlemen, the Escadrilla de performance that we hope we are going to see today, brought to you by Seven Oaks Shopping Center, just simply cannot happen. 1,000 feet is not enough to perform safely, as their narrator has told you. We were hoping that by the time they got up there, the weather would have improved. However, it apparently is not to be. So just stand by. We'll move on to the next part of our air show performance. And we hope that this weather is going to improve very, very quickly. We will, though, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll look to the north end of the field to your left, we will get a flyby by the Brazilian demonstration team. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a nice round of applause for our friends from Brazil who are back with us here for the second year in a row. And we're very pleased to have them, and we're sorry that they cannot perform, and certainly they are very disappointed. They put on a great demonstration for us here yesterday. And we're very pleased to have them back, and they are truly good friends of this air show. And we hope for your sake it's going to warm up so you'll stop shivering up here. They're used to warmer weather than this. After 2 scorching days, this is quite a change. Ladies and gentlemen, that gives you an idea just how low that cloud is. That's certainly not 1,000 feet right there as they disappeared in murk. Ladies and gentlemen, after the show yesterday, we had an unscheduled performance here about 1 hour after the show was over, as the team leads from the 5 air demonstration teams here on the airport all got together, and they flew a 5-plane formation for picture taking. We had the Italians, the Brazilians, the United States Navy Blue Angels, and the Snowbirds. 5 different airplanes all flying in formation, and apparently they got some great pictures. As you look out across the field, you are looking to the east. We'll be using those designations throughout the day today just so you can get oriented here. Folks, the Escadrilla de Fumaça will be taxiing back down the runway, and we'd ask that you just give the pilots a little wave. They'll be heading home here in the not too distant future, likely early in the week. heading back to Brazil, and we certainly have had a good time with him again this year here at Abbotsford, the second year in a row. And we thank them for coming by and being part of this truly international air show in our 25th year. We have a message here for all the Warbirds on the grounds. Would the Warbirds please report to their aircraft immediately? All the Warbirds, please report to your aircraft immediately, please. One of the things you always do at any air show, folks, is to have a standby act. Somebody who can go up and fly when you have a weather problem or some other eventuality that takes place. And believe me, there is nobody that I would rather have standing by than a man named Bud Granley. It doesn't matter what kind of an airplane you give him, he can fly it. And he just took off in his 1943 United States Navy SNJ, known up here as the Harvard. And if you gave Bud a 747, he could fly that. He could also fly a DC-10 and several other airliners, as he now works for United Airlines out of Seattle, Washington. The airplane that he is flying is, in fact, a United States Navy surplus plane. It was relegated to the scrap heap. That's where he found it. He rebuilt it, restored it, and put it in the flying condition you see today. And as Bud does with all his programs, he starts from the air and dives into the show area. The designation on the side of the airplane is the RCAF. As Bud climbs up, rolling the airplane as he goes, takes it right up, but as far as he can go with that low ceiling today before he dives back down towards the show area. Lines himself up with the show line. The smoke trailing from the airplane is an air show smoke system specially installed for use to outline the aerobatic maneuvers that you'll see here today. Bud is going to do a very small vertical 8. That is the top part of the loop of the 8, just under the overcast. He'll roll the airplane over on its back now and complete a great big split S. And if we didn't have the cloud, you would see the figure 8 standing upright in the sky, and he did that with about 1,000 feet of altitude. That looks a whole lot easier than it is. Come on, son. It's almost with us. Bud Granley diving back into the show area now. Is up into the top part of that half loop, snap rolls the airplane over, and completes the second half of a loop with a snap roll on the top. Bud Granley, who makes his home now in Bellevue, Washington, flying out of Seattle, SeaTac Airport, 747 pilot with United Airlines. Rolling the big SNJ, the length of the line, starting down now, gaining a little airspeed, pulls back on the stick, nose goes up, ready for the next roll. Loses a little altitude every time he does it. That's a heavy airplane. The Harvard weighs 2 tons empty. A lot of people do aerobatics with them. Bud does just a super job in this one. There's a push, and he'll rotate the airplane about 1/4 of a turn, and that'll line him up with a show line. Also gives him that needed airspeed in the dive, ready for his next maneuver. Here's a real nice slow roll, the length of the show line, rolling the airplane very gently, completing the 360 degrees within the confines of the show line and the spectator area. A good aerobatic performance, of course, is always kept right in front of the people. That's why you see these turnaround maneuvers. the hammerhead, the kind of maneuver you see Bud doing right there, the pushes, allowing him to dive back into the show area, gain the necessary airspeed to do the air show maneuvers. Pulls back on the stick, nose goes up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, he's upside down, 13, 14, 15, there's a 16, oh, he's got more than that, he's doing his 32, I'm sure, but he knows I can't count it. He did it yesterday in the glass air, just a beauty, a 32-point roll in a little wee airplane, you could barely see it happening. He always tells me he's going to do 16 and then he does 32 because he knows that it upsets me a lot. Series of rolls the length of the show line. And you see the landing gear popping out. Bud Granley flies not only this airplane in air shows, but the Glass Air 2. Also has been known to fly a P-51 Mustang, P-40, and numerous other planes at air shows. Spitfire, got that one. Is Bud making his approach now at the north end of the field? As you look up, ladies and gentlemen, you can see how close we are to having sunshine here today. We just need a little bit bigger hole up there so that sun can get some strength and burn this stuff off. That's what they're expecting it to do, and we're all up here blowing, trying to get it to go away. Let's give Bud Granley a big hand. He jumped into the air show here on very short notice. He was out there having a cup of coffee over in the concession area when we called him, and that's the kind of guy he is. He'll just jump in an airplane and do a performance for you that way, and he's a great guy to have on hand. And thank you very much, Bud Granley, for jumping in today on extremely short notice and flying your Harvard for us. He didn't tell me he was going to do a short field takeoff. Good grief. Ladies and gentlemen, the Antonov AN-124. The NATO identification on that aircraft is Condor. It is the largest airplane in the world, and so many people have asked, how does it compare with the Galaxy? Well, we don't want to start a comparison test here, but there are some things about that aircraft that make it the largest airplane in the world, and one of those things is the gross takeoff weight. The maximum takeoff weight of that airplane is just about 893,000 pounds. The length of 247 feet, the 124 is 228 feet long. Here's a flyby, ladies and gentlemen. Get a picture of the biggest airplane flying in the world today. That's a tire dealer's delight, isn't it? How would you like to have the contract to put rubber on that thing? The Galaxy is 65 feet high. The AN-124 is 72 feet high. The Galaxy is 222 feet long. The AN-124, pardon me, wingspan on the Galaxy is 222 feet. The AN-124 is 240 feet. So it has a larger wingspan than the Galaxy. The airplane overall, though, is shorter. The accommodation on that airplane, it carries a flight crew of 6 and has upper deck accommodation for a relief crew and up to 88 other personnel. The lower deck can accommodate numerous large pieces of cargo. The first of 3 prototypes of the AN-124 was flown on the 26th of December in 1982. Series production being initiated during the course of 1984 with initial operational deployment mid-1986. So this is a relatively new airplane. The largest aircraft currently flying in terms of wingspan and possessing the highest maximum takeoff weight of any aircraft yet flown. That aircraft will cruise at from about 497 to 528 miles per hour. This airplane arrived at this airport the other night just after the sun went down, and was one of the prettiest sights that I have ever seen, as the mountains were standing out in the background and the sky in the west was just that beautiful orange glow that we have, and this gigantic airplane flew over this airport. And I understand that the crew from the USSR were suitably impressed with our British Columbia scenery, even coming in just before dark. We're going to have a little more speed on this flyby. Ladies and gentlemen, we're also going to get performance today by the AN-74, which is the other aircraft that our friends from the USSR brought to the air show this year. It is a STOL transport type airplane. The reason that the Soviet aircraft are flying early in the show is that they do want to prepare for leaving the Abbotsford area tonight, as they will be heading back to Moscow. And they want to get busy on their preparations for departure just as soon as they can. The aircraft now circling, just starting in on final air out there on runway 25. And we'll be heading back down to the south end of the field, where it's been parked since it arrived here on Thursday evening. We have a very interesting act coming up next for you folks. Craig Hosking out of Bountiful, Utah. It is a completely aerobatic airplane, but look at the landing gear on the top as well as the bottom. Now this little arrangement posed all kinds of problems, not the least of which is how to get him out of the plane when he lands upside down. You undo the safety belt, you fall out on your head. They've arranged a winch system to get him out of the airplane and back in again when he lands upside down. Diving into the show area, ladies and gentlemen, from the south end of the field, rolling the airplane from one side to the other as he goes, is Craig Hosking from Bountiful, Utah, in his pits with 2 sets of landing gear. Is it upside down or is it right side up? You tell me. He's right side up as he climbs into the first part of a big loop. He doesn't complete it though. He starts to roll the airplane as he climbs vertically. Keeps going at full power now as he does a torque roll. Still has full power on the airplane, but it won't fly any higher, and starts to fall back down through the smoke in the maneuver they call the torque roll, a full power climb, with the airplane still on full power as it starts to slip back down backwards towards the ground. Climbing now at the north end of the field, again straight up, rotates the airplane 1/4 of a turn. Hard left rudder now as the airplane pivots on its own axis in the maneuver known as the hammerhead. Allows you to turn around, line yourself up with the runway, gain airspeed, all at the same time. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8-point roll. Stopping the airplane 8 times as he rotates it 360 degrees around its own axis. Airshow smoke system installed so that you can follow the maneuvers. Once again, a 1/4 turn going up. You're now looking at the bottom of the airplane. Again, down hard on the rudder. Over it goes into the hammerhead. 1/4 turn back, puts him right back on the show line. Right down low to the ground now. Again, pulls back on the stick. First part of a loop. This time he'll just continue through the loop, completing 360 degrees. The classic loop, sometimes known as the Barnstormer's loop. One of the first aerobatic maneuvers ever done when this whole thing started. This time down at the north end of the field, Craig does a half loop. Actually 5/8 of a loop. 2, 3, 4. Puts him back to upright from inverted. Stopping 4 times on the way around. Okay, now he's flying upside down, waving his wings at you there. That silly set of landing gears sticking off the top wing. He started testing this airplane taxiing upside down. It is not easy to do. This is knife edge flight. The wings no longer providing lift for the airplane flying on the fuselage. The fuselage becoming the flying surface, and he starts to pull away in knife edge and rotates the airplane back to upright as he starts to make his turn at the north end. This is a stock standard Pitts airplane with the exception of the modifications required for the additional set of landing gear. And he touches, and he goes back up again. He flips it over, and he comes down again. Lining it up, over he goes again. Will he try it once more before he reaches the 1 mile mark? He's going down, 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 right in front of the President's Club. Will he touch? Yes, he did. Upside down, he touches it down again, rolls it back to upright. He makes that look darn easy, I'll tell you. Many, many times he has no visual contact with the runway whatsoever when he's upside down. He simply is going by the center line of the runway. A very interesting air show act. Craig Hosking from Bountiful, Utah. You get a look at that airplane. He was towing it through the spectator area this morning behind a car. People were looking at this strange looking airplane. Here comes Craig in again, this time from the south end of the field, downwind. Wind blowing him down the runway. Is he upside down? Yes, he is. He's upside down. He's inverted. Touching down, bouncing a little bit, which he says the airplane will do. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. A beautiful inverted landing by Craig Hosking. Look at that weird looking airplane. Can you imagine landing at an airport upside down and not telling the air traffic controllers? Making a great landing like that. Now, how do they get him out of there? A little winch system has been devised. It gets him both in and out of the airplane when it's in the upside-down configuration. He needs a little help. He has a ground crew to assist him in doing that. But there's a good look at it, folks, and a good picture for you. Craig Hosking taxiing down the runway, upside down. Give him a wave. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Air Canada Cargo Express, the quiet freighter dubbed the Whisper 8. Remember the first jet aircraft, folks? Probably one of the things you remembered about them was all the noise. Well, as you can hear, it's gone. We can all appreciate the quietness of that Air Canada Cargo DC-873 freighter. Air Canada's recent re-engining program was a $150 million commitment to its cargo business, and was completed in November of 1984 when the last of the 6 cargo DC-8s rolled out of the airline's Dorval Technical Base. Those new engines not only provide a 16% better fuel efficiency, saving the airline an estimated 4 million gallons of fuel a year, but as you could hear, they certainly reduce the noise footprint dramatically. As an example, the area near an airport, subjected to 100 decibel noise levels, shrinks from 11.3 to 1.3 square miles. Because this aircraft wasn't here at the airport this morning, we're getting our instruction on what he's going to do from listening to air traffic control, actually converse with the crew. The new engines allow the DC-873 to fly right into the 1990s, more than adequately meeting the stricter anti-noise regulations that are now being introduced both in the United States and in Canada. And while we're demonstrating, ladies and gentlemen, one of the newest of Air Canada's aircraft, we are also going to have a demonstration today of one of their very oldest aircraft, the Lockheed L-10A, one of the first airplanes that was used to start service when Trans-Canada Airlines went into operation back in the 1930s. Tango Charlie Charlie is with us today. Tango Charlie Charlie is a Lockheed L-10A, completely refurbished, in the colors of Trans-Canada Airlines, just the way it flew in 1937. And the Air Canada cargo people asked me to point out that the first flight of Tango Charlie Charlie was in fact a cargo flight. It was not a passenger flight. It flew from Vancouver to Seattle on a mail run. The aircraft was only in service with Trans-Canada Airlines for about 2 years.
And wait, runway 19er, move at your discretion, caution turbulence. Roger, TCC check. Abbotsford Control, is a B-17. We'd like to go up where that Lockheed is and turn around and aiming our blast northbound. Tango
Charlie, could you move up the runway a bit, and I'll cross the B-17 behind you for runway 13.
Okay, TCC, check.
All right, we're going to have Tango Charlie Charlie take off here in just a few minutes. Trans-Canada Airlines L-10A flew in the flight into history over the Expo site this past week on the holiday Monday and again on Thursday, and delighted folks there. It's just a beautiful airplane. And of course, it was Trans-Canada Airlines that started their service with this very type of airplane. This was probably, I think, about the third one that they put into service, and is one of the very few left flying today of this type of airplane. As a matter of fact, the only remaining L-10A in flying condition in Canada today, and one of two that they know of still flying anywhere in the world. When Tango Charlie Charlie arrived in Canada, it was a brand new aircraft purchased by Trans-Canada Airlines back in 1937. So folks, what you're going to see here today is not a replica, it's the original itself, a real part of Canadian aviation history. An airplane that once flew regular service.
Tango Charlie Charlie, check. Your traffic taxiing on the grass only is an NS. Cleared the low pass east of the shoreline, well east, and go south for a few miles before you turn to the west and contact Vancouver for a clearance. Maintain VFR.
Victoria 8's on our way in.
The Lockheed 10A has now been cleared for takeoff by Abbotsford Air Traffic Control, and ladies and gentlemen, there is a piece of Canadian aviation history taking off in front of you right now. And if you're really lucky, you'll get a picture of Tango Charlie Charlie and the Whisper 8 as one takes off, the other flying in behind. The airplane taxiing down the grass is the Antonov AN-74, a short takeoff and landing transport aircraft, brought here by our friends from the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, here at this air show for the very first time, and we welcome them to the air show here at Abbotsford in 1986, our 25th year.
We'll be sitting on the runway. Go.
Tango Charlie Charlie flew with Trans-Canada Airlines, the predecessor of Air Canada, from 1937 to 1939. It was one of 5 such aircraft, of which only one other still exists, and that one is the static L-10A, which you can see at the Air Canada Pavilion at Expo 86. This early airliner was originally known as the Silver Giant, believe it or not. It weighs 10,500 pounds, cruises at 160 miles per hour. That airplane will carry 10 passengers, 2 pilots, and a stewardess. Tango Charlie Charlie has just completed a transcontinental sentimental journey celebrating Air Canada's 50th anniversary. It's also an interesting story, folks, how this airplane got back to Air Canada. It was spotted at the Confederate Air Force show in Harlingen, Texas in the mid-70s. And after a fair bit of scrutiny, they determined that it was, in fact, one of the early Trans-Canada Airlines airplanes. Air Canada purchased the aircraft in the early 80s, and it was then flown from Florida to the Air Canada maintenance facility in Winnipeg, and for the next 2 years, Tango Charlie Charlie was completely rebuilt and made ready for its new role as the Air Canada mascot. Great contributions to its success. Pratt & Whitney donated 2 zero-time engines and propellers. Certainly was appreciated. And that aircraft now, ladies and gentlemen, is taking off into the clouds heading for Calgary, Alberta. And as the L-10A leaves us for Calgary, the Antonov AN-74 short to medium range STOL transporter takes off. As you will note, that has a very interesting engine configuration. The AN-74 achieves STOL characteristics by means of upper surface blowing. The engine exhaust gases flowing over the upper wing surfaces and the inboard slotted flaps. And that is why the engines are configured the way they are. This airplane was flying for us at Airfair 86 last week, put on by the Expo 86 people here at the south end of the field. Here's a good look at the Antonov AN-74. Accommodation on that aircraft provides for a crew of 3 to 4 and provision for up to 32 passengers or 24 casualty stretchers if it's required. It's specially designed for use in the Arctic and the Antarctic. It has total STOL characteristics, the short takeoff and landing characteristics, which I'm sure they're going to demonstrate for you right now on this approach from the north end of the field. All right, I guess what we're going to get here is a slow speed flyby. The first of these aircraft are known as the AN-72 and were first flown on the 31st of August in 1977. The AN-74, as you are seeing here today, flew for the first time in 1984. So again, a relatively new airplane. The Antonov AN-74 has now been cleared to land on runway 19, which is the show line directly in front of you. Watch the approach. This type of airplane flies a very tight circuit. There's the base leg. Here comes final. He's almost right over the end of the runway when he starts his final approach. That's all the runway you need. And not to be outdone by the de Havilland Buffalo, it also backs up. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a nice round of applause for our friends from the USSR appearing for the very first time at the Abbotsford International Airshow. And a great addition to our air show this year, and they're going to be preparing now to head home to the USSR this evening. And there they are, flying the Canadian flag as they taxi down the runway. In between the wings is John Kazian, the wing walker. We relive the days of barnstorming, and this is what they used to do. They would take off with a person, be it a male or a female, tucked in between the wings of the airplane. They would then proceed to walk around in there, and in some cases would then proceed to the top wing of the airplane and do a wing walk act. And that's what this is all about. The airplane is the Waco Mystery Ship, a 450 horsepower Waco. As a matter of fact, it's been so highly modified, it is no longer a Waco. They call it the JMF, which stands for Jim M. Franklin, the man who planned it all. There you see, climbing up on the top wing now, Johnny Kazian, waving to you as he goes by, leaning up against that big strut on the top wing of the airplane. He's got his black jumpsuit on today, so he'll stand out against that gray sky. That airplane, highly modified, 450 horsepower. They moved the cockpit back 30 inches. They extended the landing gear 18 inches so the prop would clear the ground when they were taxiing. It has been stressed. It has been strengthened. Jim does a great solo performance in it, and of course it makes a great platform for this wing walking act. Johnny Kazian is the man on the top wing, fellow who got his experience as a trapeze artist in the circus at the age of 14 years old. He does a lot of work in the movies. He is a movie stuntman. He has doubled some of Hollywood's biggest stars, including Robert Redford. And his latest claim to fame is that he doubled David Hasselhoff of Knight Rider fame in the TV motion picture The Cartier Affair, which appeared on television this past season. In that picture, if you remember, David Hasselhoff was clinging to the outside of an airplane that was flying around. Well, that wasn't David, that was John Kazian doubling him in that movie. John said they made me put on a wig and they made me up so that I would look like David Hasselhoff. And he said, I don't know why they did that. I thought I looked just like him. All right, just underneath the clouds, Jim Franklin getting ready. There you see John Kazian standing on the top wing. Jimmy's going to dive into the show area now with a big 450 horsepower Waco Mystery Ship. There you see him turning upside down, starting to spin the airplane down towards the show line. A lot of pressure on John's body during these maneuvers as he spins the airplane down 3 times to line it up with the show line. John clinging to that big strut on the top wing. Jimmy Franklin taking the Mystery Ship up and rotating it as he climbs straight up. He keeps the power on. He's doing a torque roll. It starts to rotate backwards. Look at the snap back as he spins it down to line up with the runway. Not getting quite the altitude he would like today because of the cloud cover. Climbing back again now on a 45-degree line up into the sky. Listen to the engine in that airplane. This is an extremely powerful airplane, ladies and gentlemen. but it's not powerful enough. Jimmy Franklin is building another one, 600 horsepower. And he says it'll be ready for the air show circuit next year. And Jim is such a unassuming guy. He's one of the nicest, easiest going guys that you would ever want to meet. And I said, Jim, what do you think you're going to be able to do with 600 horsepower? And he thought about it for a moment and he said, Bob, it's kind of scary. That was his only comment. All right, what's he doing up there? He's just underneath the cloud, turning the airplane upside down. John hanging on for dear life, his arms outstretched. Head on to the show line, pulls back on the stick, up goes the Waco. Climbing straight up this time, straight up, kills the power, lets it start to drop back through the smoke, dropping, look at that snap. Oh, that's hard on the body standing up there, and he spins it a couple of times for good measure back down towards the ground. First a torque roll, then a tail slide, all with a man standing on the top wing, punishing for the airplane and certainly punishing for the man who's standing up there. Okay, once again, head on to the show line. I can see John waving from here. He's enjoying himself immensely up there. Johnny Kazian. You remember all the wing walking that was done in the motion picture The Great Waldo Pepper with Robert Redford? Johnny Kazian did all the wing walking in that picture. One of the great barnstorming pictures of all time. Wasn't a great story, but boy, there was some great flying in it. A lot of the fine aerobatic performers performed in that movie, which you still see on television from time to time. All right, Jimmy Franklin just try to see if he can find a bit of a hole there to gain a little bit more altitude. That's what he's looking for. Okay, the air show smoke system comes on, indicating that he's ready to go with his next maneuver. And once again, he starts to dive the big Waco back into the show area. There you see John standing out very clearly against the gray clouds. Pulls up, rotates the airplane, and keeps it rolling as he goes up. And he pushes it over very, very tightly now over the top. Rotating it again as he starts down, putting him back at show center. Starting up into the first half of a loop. This time he completes the entire loop. There's John still waving his arms up there. They bring on the next one. Upside down, rolls the airplane at the top. First half of a Cuban 8. Up again. Completes 5/8 of a loop. Starts down on the 45-degree line, and the figure 8 outlined in the sky, the Cuban or horizontal 8. This time he'll just keep climbing straight up. This time tucks it over very tightly upside down. Diving back towards the ground. Ground coming up at him. Rolls that big airplane over on its back. Jim Franklin does a great aerobatic performance as a solo act and does many of the same maneuvers during the wing walk performance. Look at Johnny waving up there. What a crazy guy. You have to be up there to really know how this feels, folks. A couple of people up here on this announcing stand that have done this for kicks. Glenn Matthews and yours truly will tell you what it feels like. He's just lucky it's not raining up there today. Rain feels like bullets when you're standing on top of that wing. Okay, there's a good look at Johnny. Pulls it up, Jim rotating the airplane 1/4 of a turn, and he does a hammerhead. Look at how the ground he's doing these maneuvers with that man up there. And that airplane flies a whole lot different, boy, when you got a man up there on the top wing. It's a different ball game than when he's flying his solo act. And he says it makes a big difference. It's like a different airplane. Put that man up there, and of course, airplanes aren't designed to have somebody standing up on top. It completely destroys the airflow over the wings of the airplane. Well, he did his best to shake him. This time, Jimmy's diving back into the show area, going to give it one more try here. Pulls back on the stick and rolls the airplane upside down. And it wig-waggles the wings a little bit. Leaves his buddy hanging by his feet in the stirrups that are located on that strut. I have an urgent announcement here for Abe Hebert, the driver of the Century Bus Lines bus. Please return to your bus immediately, please. Abe Hebert, to your bus immediately. Thank you. Well, here's John is congratulating his pilot, hanging on to the strut with one hand, shaking hands with Jim Franklin, saying, "Nice try, buddy, but you didn't shake me again." There they are, pilot and wing walker congratulating each other. I wonder what they say when they do that. I'd love to hear that. Take it up, Jim. Take it up. Thank you. A little carried away with their handshake there. I thought it was never going to end. Okay, now John will be doing a series of things on the top wing. Let's see what he's going to do first as Jimmy brings the Waco Mystery Ship right down the show line. John standing up there. Let's see what he's doing. There he is. Got one leg stretched out, two arms stretched out in front, just hanging on with one foot. He's just straddling that strut on the top wing of the airplane. One foot is holding him on, ladies and gentlemen. And Jim Franklin now being very careful in the turnaround maneuvers. No more hammerheads. He's got a man up there now who is walking around changing position on the wing, so he will be very careful as he turns the airplane around. And of course, the way the cockpit of that airplane is set back so far, Jim can actually see John up there on the wing. The cockpit is behind, well behind the wing. All right, let's see what's happening this time. It looks to me like it could be the headstand. Yes, it is. There are 2 feet sticking out on top, 2 arms. He's standing on his head, ladies and gentlemen, just leaning back against that strut. The headstand. John Kasian, the man who learned to fly the flying trapeze. He has starred in many of the world's famous circuses as a flying trapeze artist. Started that when he was just a youngster. Now I believe that John has climbed down from the wing and once again is tucked in between the wings of the airplane. Can you folks down there see him? You can probably see him as they come on head to the show line. Yes, he suspended himself in the wires of the wing. Flying in the wires, they call this. And as Jimmy pulls away, you can see on the far side of the airplane. No feet on the wing, no hands on the wing. He is simply suspending himself in the supporting wires between the wing. They call it flying in the wires. Not very comfortable, I might add. A little chilly up there today, although we now start to see some blue sky appear. And that weather briefing man this morning wasn't too far off. He said it would happen between 12 and 1. He's got about 8 minutes left, I think. Anyway, looking a lot better and starting to feel a little bit warmer. There's a good look at Johnny flying in the wires. Pulling away from show center, that little black speck in there. That airplane is so powerful, folks, that when Jim Franklin in his solo act comes into land, he can hold the tail wheel off when he's stopped just on the power of the engine. He can drop the tail wheel back to the runway and bring it right back up again without ever moving the airplane. Who knows what he'll be able to do when he has 600 horsepower in the front of his new Waco mystery ship. Jim Franklin from Ruidoso, New Mexico, and Johnny Kasian from the state of Idaho. Here's a real good look at how Johnny Kasian rides that airplane. There's only one seat, so he doesn't have much choice. Going to have to find some other place to ride. Look at Jimmy hold that tail wheel off. Look at him hold that tail wheel off. Still holding it off. There, now it starts to settle back down. They're probably going to go down there to the President's Club and have a chat with the people down there. This airplane is taking off and is going to be flying over the expo site in Vancouver. I just want to mention, ladies and gentlemen, that the reason for holding the traffic at the north and south ends of the runway is in preparation for the Blue Angels performance. For all of you that are sitting there in your cars, if you can hear me, turn your car radio to the FM dial and you'll be able to hear the Blues commentary on your car radio and enjoy the show. And as soon as their performance is over, the traffic again will be allowed to cross the ends of the runway. In this part of the country, because it picks up water while in flight right over the top of lakes. So it can drop its load on the forest fire, go to the nearest available lake that will allow it to get in and out safely. And as it skims across the top of the water, it will pick up another load and can be back at the fire scene in very short order. The aircraft is being operated by Canada, as you can see, and is being operated out of this airport by Conair Aviation, but it's actually a Government of Canada airplane.
Since 1946, the Blue Angels have had the rare privilege of demonstrating to the American public the precision techniques of naval aviation, hoping to inspire our young men and women to choose careers in the United States Navy and Marine Corps. The maneuvers you will see demonstrated here this afternoon are coordinated tactical techniques developed by Navy and Marine pilots, both in peacetime training and actual combat. These maneuvers are neither stunts nor daring feats, but are refinements of basic techniques taught to every prospective naval aviator. Here at Abbotsford, we will be demonstrating these maneuvers at a very low altitude in traditional Blue Angel formation so that you may see and take pride in the precise fashion in which the Navy and Marine Corps pilots are trained to fly. The Blue Angels fly the McDonnell Douglas A4F Skyhawk II, a single-seat light attack jet, versions of which have been operational throughout the fleet since 1956. The 6 demonstration aircraft are approaching the end of the runway now to begin their takeoff sequence. Very shortly, Commander Rood will call the 4 Diamond pilots into the fingertip formation. In the fingertip, Blue Angel number 4, the slot pilot, will be positioned outboard of Blue Angel number 2 on the right wing. In this formation, they will initiate their takeoff roll, transition to the Diamond after liftoff, and commence their high-performance climb. As the Diamond clears the flight line, our 2 solo pilots will begin their takeoff maneuvers. In a spectacular demonstration of the thrust generated by the J-52 P408 engine, Lieutenant Commander Watson will roll Blue Angel number 5 360 degrees immediately after takeoff with the landing gear and flaps extended. As he clears the flight line, Lieutenant Anderson in Blue Angel number 6 will begin his takeoff roll. He'll execute a very low, precise transition, a low-altitude aileron roll, and complete the maneuver with a very graceful 1/2 Cubanate after takeoff. Due to the poor weather conditions, the flight demonstration this afternoon will be our flat show. The maneuvers in this demonstration are specifically selected to provide you with an opportunity to view each of the formations the Blue Angels fly, as well as a variety of flight regimes in which the naval aviator must be skilled. They're on the runway now, established in that fingertip formation. They'll accelerate their engines to 80% power, carefully check their engine instruments, and respond to Commander Rude with a thumbs up, indicating they're ready to go. With a thumbs up from each of his wingmen, Commander Rude will call off the brakes, and the Blue Angel Diamond will be rolling. Accelerating to 150 miles per hour, Commander Rude will pull back on the stick and fly the formation into the air. Let's watch as Lieutenant Walsh makes his move to the slot, establishing that diamond formation. Once in the slot, he'll call for the landing gear to come up, the smoke to come on, and they'll commence their high-performance climb. From the left, the Blue Angel Diamond is rolling. Back to the left, Blue Angel number 5 is rolling. He'll accelerate to 170 miles per hour and climb 360 degrees with the landing gear and flaps extended. The dirty roll and takeoff. Back to the left once more, Blue Angel number 6 is rolling. And a low altitude aileron roll. He rolls his aircraft 360 degrees and continues to accelerate to 300 miles per hour. Having completed their takeoff maneuvers, the 6 pilots have rendezvoused in the Delta formation. In the Delta, our 2 solo pilots have joined in the left and right outpost position on the wings of Lieutenant Walsh in the slot. As the formation approaches, you should get a good look at the entire Blue Angel formation prior to individual diamond and solo maneuvering. Ladies and gentlemen, directly before you, the Blue Angels 1986. As they approach, watch how the 2 solo pilots detach on signal and set up for the first of their opposing maneuvers. Behind the spectator area, Blue Angels 5 and 6 are accelerating to 400 miles per hour and pulling back toward the flight line. They will give you an opportunity to take a close look at that very minimum 36-inch wingtip to canopy separation that exists between these 4 aircraft. From the right, the Blue Angel Diamond 1986. The opposing knife edge pass. in the inverted aircraft has called for the landing gear to be extended in a maneuver we call the Fortis. Marvel. The Blue Angel Echelon Parade. The left echelon flat pass. Completing the flat pass, watch as they slide from left echelon to a trail position and back into the traditional Blue Angel diamond. As the diamond clears the flight line, our solos are approaching from the left and right for their next opposing maneuver. These McDonnell Douglas Skyhawks have a tactical roll rate of over 700 degrees per second with maximum stick deflection. Our two solos approaching center point with a combined velocity of 1,000 miles per hour will now perform a series of maximum stick deflection horizontal rolls. Approaching for the Delta flat pass. Pass before us, you should get a good look at the Delta set used by the 5 wingmen. The very crisp 8-point hesitation roll.
Pilots today, Captains Ralph Bolton and John Truran. Get your cameras ready. This is colorful, folks. Through Conair's modifications, the F-27 is stripped of its airline furnishings and fitted with a 3,635 liter, that's 1,400 imperial gallons. And that tank has 8 compartments, and the tank becomes an integral part of the aircraft fuselage. The retardant delivery system has computerized flow regulators and door sequencing systems, which allows the pilot to very precisely control the amount of retardant dropped forming a line around the forest fire. Brightly colored for visibility from the air, the retardant acts as a fireproof barrier around the blaze and remains effective long after the drop has been made. You can also see that this is a very maneuverable aircraft, which of course is very useful in the mountainous terrain of British Columbia. Captains Bolton and Truran both have much firefighting experience in former Conair aircraft like the Grumman TBM Avenger and the still active Douglas A-26 Invader, the Douglas DC-6, and the Grumman Tracker, which is known here, of course, as the Conair Firecat. That aircraft normally carries a crew of 13, but for today's display, the crew complement has been reduced to 7. There are 2 pilots, 1 flight engineer, 1 air electronics officer, and 3 air electronics operators. And if everything goes according to the script, the bomb bay doors will be open on this pass. That airplane is capable of carrying torpedoes, harpoons, and other equipment, including search and rescue equipment. You likely also noticed, it was hard not to, that it has a gigantic searchlight on it. That is a 1 million candle power searchlight on that airplane. This aircraft also has excellent turning performance at low speeds. Altitude cruise of 0.69 Mach, a low-level cruise at 300 knots. Here's another good look at the Nimrod from the opposite direction. Most interesting color. Take my word for it, he's doing a wing over there, up there in the clouds. There he is. That gives you an idea of how low that ceiling is here today. As the 4 aircraft climb down there at the north end of the field, ladies and gentlemen, all 4 of them now side by side in formation at precisely the same time. Hard left rudder, over they go into the formation hammerhead. Look at the change of formation as they come out of that formation hammerhead, and as they come down the show line, one aircraft turns upside down. As they go into that loop, look at how they trade spots when they get to the top. 3 airplanes now upside down, and that lead aircraft is right side up as they do the inside-outside loop. As the 4 aircraft come out of that 1/4 cloverleaf maneuver, 2 aircraft you will notice have gone one direction and 2 the other. The 2 coming head onto the show line, Rod Ellis and Bill Cowan, diving back towards the show area. Very shortly they'll start to pull back on the stick, and those 2 Pitts S2A aircraft will climb high into the sky. Rod Ellis will call for the airshow smoke systems to come on. One aircraft will peel off to the south, the other to the north. As they pull over the top, outlined in the sky, you will see a giant heart, and George Curbison goes right through the middle, Cupid's arrow through the heart, a little salute from the Ray-Ban Golds. And ladies and gentlemen, with an outside rolling 360-degree tornado roll, that is Mr. Al Hoff from Guelph, Ontario, rolling his airplane as he goes around 360 degrees in the middle of the field. A lot harder to do than it looks, as you must keep your altitude at all times when you're doing that maneuver. side 360-degree turn within the confines of the field. Rod Ellis, George Curbison, Bill Cowan, and Al Hoff, the Ray-Ban Golds, and all of these fellows, of course, Canadian. Rod Ellis from Surrey, George Curbison from Langley, Bill Cowan from White Rock, and Al Hoff from Guelph, Ontario. The two lead aircraft, Rod Ellis and Bill Cowan, right behind George Curbison and Al Hoff. Watch what happens here. The Ray-Ban Golds call this the double squirrel cage loop. I want you to watch the number 4 aircraft flown by Al Hoff as he will attempt to do the difficult square loop. Difficult, because each one of the legs takes a little bit longer time or shorter time to do, depending on whether you're climbing or coming down. Here's the first part of it. That's the bottom of it. Now watch him do this quick right turn, and up he goes. Now, how long does it take? You have to work this out by the length of time it takes you to do each one of the sides of the loop. Now, across the top. Having to work it out so that this next leg is the same length as the one on the bottom. And he starts to dive, now going faster, of course. And across the bottom, if the wind didn't blow it away, you would see a 4-sided loop in the sky. Diving back into the show area because he needs lots of airspeed for this next maneuver. He will pull back on the stick and he will attempt, ladies and gentlemen, the Lumshabak. He'll roll the airplane over on its back and swap nose to tail, tail to nose. There's the airplane falling out of control in the Lumshabak, done in a pit special by Al Hoff from Guelph, Ontario, the latest member of the Ray-Ban Golds aerobatic team. Colin Chase on the far side in the yellow Harvard with the U.S. markings, and John Morasic flying Bud Granley, U.S. Navy SL2000. The beautiful Cessna Crane, an RCAF World War II twin-engine trainer. The Bamboo Bomber, they call this airplane, followed by the Beech 18. The next airplane off the runway is a T-28, the North American T-28B. Air Forces in South America. Dave Price in the P-51 Mustang Old Cottonmouth. And here comes one of my favorite airplanes, all the way from Hollister, California. Ellsworth Getchell in the 1951 Hawker Sea Fury in the colors of the Australian Navy. Every nut and bolt has been replaced in that airplane. Only airworthy Boeing-built Model F left in the world. The B-17, one of the best known and the most widely used heavy bombers of World War II. A little aerobatic performance going on out there by Tony Swain out at center field in his Harvard. That Cessna Crane, ladies and gentlemen, was an absolute basket case. Little pieces, and they put it all together and restored it into the condition that you see it today. Joe Howden. The B-17 just awaiting his takeoff clearance here from air traffic control, and we'll get that airborne, and I'm sure we'll have the opportunity for you to get some great pictures. I hope you have your camera loaded with Kodak film. If you haven't, run to the nearest Kodak booth on the ramp. There are several of them, and get your camera loaded. If you're having any problems or need some hints on your picture taking today, those people will do their best to help you out as well. Here's a picture for you, a T-28 Hawker Sea Fury and a P-51 Mustang. And folks, the B-17 just starting to roll on takeoff. That aircraft is owned by Bob Richardson. The pilot is Don Clark. This particular B-17F was delivered to the U.S. Army Air Force at Wright Field, Ohio on February the 13th of 1943. It was stationed at McClellan Air Force Base in California and Moses Lake, Washington, prior to assignment to the 8th Air Force in England in early 1944. Full historical records on the operation of that airplane are still being researched, and we'll tell you more about it in a little while. The Sea Fury and the T-28. Tony Swain out there at center field doing his aerobatics for you. Tony is a businessman from Vancouver, trained in 1953 with the RCAF at Penhold, Alberta. Jerry James piloting the Silver Harvard. Jerry, of course, well known for his many years with the BC Lions football team. And Jerry, a very successful businessman, also from the Vancouver area, has owned a number of World War II airplanes in the last few years. The North American T-28B is owned and flown by Ralph Erie, who is a dentist in Delta, British Columbia. This airplane was designed in 1952 as a replacement for the Harvard. It has a top speed of 340 miles per hour and has a 1,425 horsepower Wright engine in it. The T-28 is still in use in many countries in the world. As the B-17 goes by, you know, this airplane for many years was used as a fire bomber in the United States and is now being restored back to its original condition. As the Beech-18 and the Cessna Crane come around, that Cessna Crane, an RCAF World War II twin-engine trainer, called the Bamboo Bomber because so much of it is made of wood. This aircraft served the multi-engine pilot training role for the U.S. and Canada in great numbers. Very few Cessna Cranes remain today. This particular aircraft, as we mentioned, has been painstakingly restored to pristine condition by its owner and pilot, Joe House of Duncan. Controls and everything else, and that's the result. Not as easy to fly as it looks, because you must remember they're in formation. Not that much space between the airplanes. Here's another great picture for you, the B-17. That B-17 starred in several motion pictures and television shows, including 12 O'Clock High, 1000 Bomber Raid, also starred in Tora Tora Tora. Bob Richardson purchased this airplane from Globe Air, which had been operating it for the past 20 years. Airport.
be the McDonnell Douglas British Aerospace AV-8B vertical takeoff and landing Harrier II. Myself, Major Willie Bain, and my squadron mate, Captain Eddie Holcomb, who will be flying the demonstration today, are both U.S. Marine Corps operational test and evaluation pilots from Air Tevron 5, based at China Lake, California. The AV-8B Harrier II is the new generation of Harrier and has been in operation with the United States Marine Corps since 1984. Its predecessors, the AV-8A and British Sea Harrier, have been in service in England, Spain, and the United States since the early 70s. This aircraft is unique, to say the least. It is the only jet in the free world today that can take off and land vertically and also can achieve airspeeds of over 600 miles per hour in conventional flight. Today, we would like to demonstrate those unique capabilities of the Harrier, and I'm sure when it is over, you will agree vertical flight by jet aircraft is the way of the future. As Captain Eddie Holcomb takes the runway, he will accelerate his engine several times to check its performance. Unlike conventional aircraft, the Harrier gets no lift from its wings while in vertical flight. It must rely solely on its engines to keep it aloft. Even a small degradation in the engine's performance could spell certain disaster. Harrier pilots, therefore, become very sensitive and aware of each movement and sound of the Rolls-Royce Pegasus engine. Captain Eddie Holcomb's first maneuver will be a short takeoff flight, conventional flight, in order to demonstrate the AV-8B's conventional capabilities. Fully loaded with fuel and ordnance, the Harrier can achieve airborne flight in less than 800 feet. As just demonstrated, the Harrier is able to operate from expeditionary landing sites, short airfields, sod fields, aircraft carriers, and amphibious ships. The AV-8 concept represents a practical solution to the problem of vulnerability associated with large airfields in a combat zone, while providing Marine ground commanders with the ready and rapid strike power required in the modern conventional warfare. The Harrier concept has been fully combat tested, and it has amply demonstrated its importance to modern warfare. As Captain Eddie Holcomb maneuvers the Harrier in conventional flight, he has the ability to move or vector the thrusts of his engine by rotating his engine exhaust nozzles up to 98 degrees from his flight path. This is done through a lever that is located next to his throttle in the cockpit. This ability to change the direction of his engine's thrust gives the Harrier an increased pitch rate over conventional flight, an ability to vertically take off and land, and the ability to decelerate faster than any conventional jet aircraft today. This ability to vector thrust gives the Harrier a unique advantage in the air combat or dogfight arena. If you look closely, you may see the nozzles moving throughout the demonstration. Because the surface of Abbotsford runway is asphalt, all maneuvers today by the Harrier will begin and end with a slight forward motion. This is to keep from melting the runway surface. The Harrier has a true vertical capability from concrete and steel matting. As Captain Eddie Holcomb ends his conventional flight profile, he has experienced airspeeds of 0 to 500 miles per hour and G-forces in excess of 6 times the pull of gravity. But the real demanding part of the demo is about to begin. Captain Eddie Holcomb will decelerate the Harrier into a hover in front of you, demonstrate some handling characteristics, then land and let his engines cool for the final portion. Eddie Holcomb taxis back to position the aircraft. He is repositioning his trim, checking his engine indications, and he is resetting his nozzle position. This small taxi back will allow his engine to cool down below the 200 degrees required for him to continue the profile. Once positioned for takeoff, Captain Eddie Holcomb will demonstrate a rolling vertical takeoff and a steep climb out. We'll come back, reposition for some more vertical work, and then demonstrate to you how the AV-8B can accelerate from a hovered position to in excess of 400 miles per hour. That, ladies and gentlemen, is as close to rocket-powered flight as we are today in the 20th century. Captain Eddie Holcomb will now demonstrate the ability to enter a confined landing area from a very high altitude by using his nozzles vectored forward to keep himself from accelerating as he comes downhill. Captain Eddie Holcomb, at the completion of this demonstration, will bow to the crowd to show his appreciation in mind for inviting us to Canada. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, again, on behalf of myself, Major Willie Bain, and Captain Eddie Holcomb, we would like to thank you for inviting us to Abbotsford this year, and we look forward to next year.
Thanks, Willie, and what a great performance, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have a nice round of applause for the United States Marine Corps and their Harrier. From Ames Research Center, Dennis Riddle. Dennis?
Thank you very much, Bob. Really do appreciate the opportunity for NASA to be represented here at this fine 25th Annual International Air Show. The NASA Center at Ames Research Center does do much work in wind tunnels and flight simulation and carries much of the results of that work to our flight research vehicles, such as the Quiet Short Haul Research Aircraft, or QSRA. This airplane was designed to prove the concept of upper surface blowing using 4 engines to be able to take maximum advantage of the configuration. You'll notice that the configuration is very similar to the Soviets' AN-74, but because of the 4 engines, you have much better protection in case of the loss of an engine, and therefore can utilize much lower airspeeds very safely. This first takeoff will be a takeoff roll followed by a spiral departure to show the noise abatement procedure which can be used with this kind of vehicle. As the QSRA completes its 360-degree spiraling departure from the airport, you'll notice that the noise that you do hear is confined to the airport boundary. If you notice, as the airplane circles, the period at which you hear the maximum noise is the time at which you can see the upper surface of the wing. Persons below the flight path of the aircraft are not aware, or nearly as aware, of the presence of the airplane. And this is one of the noise abatement procedures which can be used with future commercial airliners of the future. We have 2 of our NASA flight test pilots flying the QSRA today. Our pilot in command is Jim Martin, who's a U.S. Air Force pilot, has gone through U.S. Air Force Test Pilot School. In the right seat as co-pilot, we have Mr. Gordon Hardy, who is an ex-Navy pilot. Both gentlemen have spent many years flying these kinds of airplanes, not just the QSRA, but other types of vertical takeoff and landing, as well as short takeoff and landing vehicles. The QSRA now comes back to the field from the south to give us what we call a high-speed bypass, our flyby. We do not retract our landing gear since the airplane is a research airplane for low-speed work only. And now to the north, the QSRA will climb up, gain a little altitude, to show you the landing approach capabilities of this unique airplane. The landing approach will be flown nominally at 75 to 80 knots from his approximately 1,500-foot starting point. He will be using the wing spoilers to allow the airplane to descend, much similar to an elevator. You'll notice this is actually a 2-segment approach with a very steep, very slow approach initially, with a gradual shallowing out at about a 300-foot altitude to a 6-degree landing approach angle. The effective flight path angle during this descent is approximately 17 degrees. And now he brings the wing spoilers in, flattening out to still a steep 6-degree approach, and slowing the airplane to 65 knots for this landing. Because of the fact we were having a nose gear leakage problem, we're not using maximum braking today, but even without maximum braking, you can still see how quickly the airplane was brought to a stop. We'll now make a second takeoff with a straight-out departure to show you the steep climb angle the airplane can attain very safely at fairly low airspeeds. Takeoff speed in this case is 82 knots. The QSRA first flew in 1978. It's a modification of a de Havilland C8A Buffalo with 4 Avco Lycoming turbofan engines. The modification was done for NASA under contract by the Boeing Commercial Airplane Company in Seattle, Washington. These types of airplanes, because of their low speed handling requirements and engine out requirements, have to have very snappy roll control power. And you'll see in the series of figure-8 maneuvers, which are now coming up, the roll control rates as shown by this maneuver. Also, the airplane has the ability to be able to turn very tightly. The diameter of the circle that you're seeing during this figure-8 maneuver has been measured to be 1,000 feet. Therefore, the airplane is able to stay entirely within the airport boundary while doing this tight maneuver. As he approaches back toward the crowd, notice the quick roll reversal. Very impressive for an airplane. As you're looking at it, weighs 46,000 pounds. The maximum takeoff gross weight of the QSRA during our research work is at 60,000 pounds. Our pilots now will bring the airplane back around to make a low-speed pass to show you how the airplane can be safely flown at very low airspeeds. And at this point, I'd like to comment that this entire air show demonstration that we do can be performed safely on 3 engines. During this flyby, the QSRA is flying at 55 knots. Those of you who may have seen the airplane fly by the expo on Thursday were probably amazed to see this kind of airplane flying behind the cockpit steering wheel. This is how we managed to do that. Jim and Gordon will now keep the airplane in a tight pattern and return back to the field for final landing. All of the research work that's been done with the QSRA over 570 hours of flight time is now available to the industry as a great database to allow the production of military and civil aircraft using this type of technology. And again, this final landing will be made at about 65 knot final approach speed. On behalf of NASA Ames Research Center, I thank you very much for your attention during our demonstration. I'll turn the mic over to Bob.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a truly amazing airplane.
To meet one of the true heroes of the universe and see for yourself the beauty of this graceful starship.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tsar has decided and elected to land here at Abbotsford. Just over the threshold now, the beautiful Starship Pride, just barely touching down, and he will be taxiing to show center. When he gets to show center, he will get out of the Starship Pride, so if you've ever wondered what an alien from another planet looks like, here will be your opportunity to see what an alien from Zephrania, the 15th planet of the 7th galaxy, from the solar source of the planet Earth. He now wheels that beautiful Starship Pride down the runway. Czar has landed. Czar is on Earth. Welcome to Earth, Czar.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the north end of the field, the British Airways Concorde. Through the cooperation of Pacific Western Holidays and British Airways, we present for the first time at an Abbotsford Airshow the British Airways Concorde. And we're going to tell you something about the development of that airplane and something about the airplane that you're seeing here today. You know, this all started back in 1956 when Great Britain and France started working separately towards a supersonic aircraft. In 1962, they decided to form a partnership for a joint development exercise. And as a result of that exercise, 16 Concordes were produced. The first flight of the French aircraft, 001, took place from Toulouse, France on March the 2nd, 1969. The first flight of the British supersonic aircraft was Concorde 002 on April 9th of 1969. Ladies and gentlemen, the British Airways Concorde. British Airways was the world's first supersonic airline, having ordered 5 Concordes in July of 1972. Concorde's ability to cruise at twice the speed of sound, which is faster than the muzzle velocity of a rifle bullet, means that the aircraft crosses the Atlantic in 3 hours, 45 minutes. Concorde has actually broken the 3-hour barrier on the North Atlantic run, covering the New York to London run in 2 hours, 56 minutes and 20 seconds back in 1983. Military aircraft have been flying supersonically for 2.5 decades, but Concorde has now flown more passengers at Mach 2 than the number of military pilots worldwide. 5,000 hours of testing went into Concorde. The total made Concorde the most tested program in aviation history. Pacific Western Holidays and British Airways presenting the Concorde. The cabin of that airplane holds 100 passengers in pairs of seats, 2 on each side of the center aisle, all in first-class layout. As you can see, it's a long, streamlined airplane on the outside. It has a length of 204 feet, but in supersonic flight, it stretches an additional 10 inches. The cabin environment is better than subsonic aircraft since it is pressurized to a more comfortable level, which reduces fatigue. The major fatigue saving, however, is a result of the drastically reduced journey times. The aircraft has 4 engines, and they give over 38,000 pounds of thrust each with reheat. Reheat adds fuel to the final stage of the engine cycle to produce the extra power required for takeoff or the transition to supersonic flight. Cruise speed of the Concorde is Mach 2, which is 1,350 miles per hour, twice the speed of sound. Concorde's range with a full payload and full fuel reserves is more than 4,000 miles. Concorde's cruise altitude is 50,000 to 60,000 feet, some 10,000 to 20,000 feet higher than today's commercial jets. This leads to several advantages, of course. It is well above the slower jets when cruising, so there are no air traffic control problems. It is also, of course, most always above any weather problems. That characteristic drooped nose is lowered to improve pilot visibility on landing. Moreover, automatic approach and landing is a feature of Concorde, just as it is with other 747s and other jets. We have an urgent message here for Dennis and Jean Crawford. Will you please go to the airshow office in hangar number 2 immediately? Dennis and Jean Crawford to the airshow office on the 2nd floor of hangar number 2. The British Airways Concorde is the featured picture on the front page of this year's airshow program, which I understand is now sold out. If you have one, it is a real collector's item. The 25th year of Abbotsford Airshows, and of course you'll want to be hanging on to that program. Concorde, and on this pass you will see the nose slightly droop, giving the pilot a better view of the runway. The characteristics of Concorde are very different from subsonic jets, especially on takeoff. Concorde leaves the runway at 200 to 215 knots, compared with a subsonic 165 knots. It carries the same approach holding patterns or diversion patterns as other jets. Its runway requirements are also the same. However, the landing speeds are above those of most subsonic aircraft. We understand that we're going to get one more pass from Concorde on this Sunday of our 25th year of Abbotsford Airshow, as he's coming on now to the field from the southeast. One final salute to the Abbotsford International Airshow. Pacific Western Holidays and British Airways, ladies and gentlemen, bringing their Concorde to Abbotsford. We know they have people here on the grounds. Let's give them a nice round of applause for the first appearance by this amazing airplane at this air show. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, apparently we're going to get one more pass from the Concorde as we just slipped the show a little bit here to make up for the agenda changes that we've had today, and we understand now from air traffic control that he will come back for one final pass of the airport before heading back to Vancouver. We also understand that when he gets to show center, he'll pour the juice to that airplane and punch her right up through those clouds. And we understand that they are actually very thin clouds, and he'll be in the sunshine again very, very shortly. So many people have said we haven't heard a noise like that since the Vulcan was here. Very reminiscent of the RAF Vulcan that performed here for so many years. We also heard a noise like that on Friday when the SR-71 flew by. Oh, an exciting part of our air show this year.
The white, green, and red smokes going out for this lower show. You've seen the formation of 9 in diamond going to the right, completing that right Schneider, while the solo will come right away and execute a slow roll. The typical formation flown by the Italian Air Force aerobatic team, the diamond, with 9 aircraft plus the solo. It means the largest formation in the world flying. Formation come from your right and executing a left roll in diamond. Those clouds out there got to be very low. While the solo is coming this time from your left, executing a quick roll. From your left, the solo of the Italian Air Force aerobatic team, going for his left quick roll. But from the left, the formation is coming again. 4,000 pounds steady thrust. There is the fan spread out the formation, color smokes. And going for a Schneider, while the solo is coming from the right again, this time for an upside down pass. Formation is completed right in front of you. And again, the aircraft is capable of 485 knots as its maximum speed. It's long 10.9 meters with a wingspan of 10.25 meters. Completing the Schneider and the solo coming from the left this time for a 4-point roll. Here the formation comes again. They will change now. You'll see how this maneuver will be performed by number 4 and number 5, the second left and right wingmen, executing a roll going back at the go now to the new formation. Closing up. And now again for half a Schneider. While the solo is on your right now, upside down, back. But right in front of you, the formation to be completed. The max weight of the MB339 is 4,315 kilograms, and the maximum load factor can be put on this aircraft is +8 and -4 Gs. Out of the Schneider for repositioning. Well, it's time for the solo to come again, this time from your left side. He's going to execute a very slow roll. Or the crazy flight. He goes on a crazy flight. A maneuver to show up how maneuverable is this kind of aircraft. So crazy, can be handled with a capable pilot. While the formation down, executing a right roll in Swan. Here he goes for the slow roll, the very slow roll. And the formation from the right of our flag. Coming out 7 and 8, rolling back. 2 and 3. This is a beautiful figure that was set up in the Italian Air Force back in 1956 with the famous former team called Thunderjets. The solo comes here again from the left, executing quick rolls, and then 300 is going on 360 degrees point Schneider to show how far the aircraft can maneuver and maintain the position for his specific employment in anti-tank roll. He goes again on rolls. While the formation is coming from your left again in while the solo is coming again from your right. Speed has been reduced. Goes up for a loop. And I can tell you the altitude of the cloud got to be very low, because normally he does this loop within 1,500 feet. Out of the loop with gears down and landing configuration, goes on for a left roll. And of course, he's pressing up now because the formation is coming from the right. Now with the color smokes. And that will be the final pass before the Italian Air Force acrobatic team goes down to land. We have been very pleased to offer you a high show yesterday. But there he comes, the solo from your left and the formation on your right. This is our traditional final pass. Low speed, wheels down, flaps down, landing lights on. And with the green, white, and red smokes, the color of our flag, the Italian flag that we proudly brought here in Abbotsford. And for that, we are grateful for the invitation to fly in Canada and for the possibilities we had to demonstrate the tradition, the spirit, the techniques, and the skill of the Italian Air Force personnel. We'd like to thank the organizers of this beautiful show and the Canadian people for the great opportunity that has been given to us to show our Air Force. Thank you for the warm and unforgettable reception here in Abbotsford, and we hope to come back soon.
Thank you very much, Major DeForno. Ladies and gentlemen, the Frecce Tricolore from Italy. What a great job with a low show today.
Everything off with your announcer, and you'll be clear.
The A-10 is capable of taking off in less than 4,000 feet with a 16,000-pound munitions load. This short-field takeoff ability makes the A-10 uniquely capable of operating from small airfields and highways. The A-10's twin General Electric turbofan engines are smokeless and much quieter than other engines of comparable size. This is an outstanding aid in achieving tactical surprise when attacking from very low altitudes. An additional feature of the turbofan engine is low fuel consumption. In the ferry configuration, the A-10 can fly over 2,100 miles on its own fuel. With in-flight refueling, it is deployed without any en route stops to the European theater. Please direct your attention to the right, where Captain Betts is now positioning for a high-speed pass. As he passes show center, he will demonstrate the rolling capability of the A-10. As Captain Betts completes this aileron roll, he will perform a level 360-degree turn. This outstanding maneuverability enables the A-10 to work effectively under marginal weather conditions. The A-10 turn radius in this maneuver is only 1,600 feet. This tight turn radius allows the A-10 to deliver forward-fired ordnance from long ranges and then turn to avoid overflying the threat. Captain Betts is now positioning for a simulated strafe pass. The A-10's 30mm Gatling gun provides the pilot with a weapon that has a devastating effect on enemy tanks. The 30mm projectile delivers 7 times the destructive energy of the more conventional 20mm round. After this last strafe attack, Captain Betts will perform a jink-out maneuver that is designed to spoil the tracking solution of enemy ground gunners. Note that by continually turning and changing direction, the A-10 is a difficult target to follow and would therefore be a difficult target to shoot. The A-10 has additional capability to perform a defensive break from 1,000 feet down to 50 feet above the ground in less than 7 seconds. Captain Betts is now positioning his aircraft on a downwind for a final approach. This first landing pattern will demonstrate the normal landing configuration of the A-10. The normal final approach speed is 120 knots. You will also note the paint on the A-10. This camouflage pattern and color scheme were designed to conceal the A-10 from enemy visual air observation or attack. In addition, the multi-layer paint is designed to reduce infrared radiation and thus aids in countering heat-seeking missiles. Pulling up into a closed traffic pattern, Captain Betts will demonstrate a short-field landing. The A-10 can land in less than 2,000 feet. For today's demonstration, the aircraft will touch down at a point 2,000 feet from the end of the runway and will be completely stopped in less than 1,500 feet from the touchdown point. Its large wing area and very effective speed brakes enable the A-10 to land at airstrips never before available to jet aircraft. The A-10's maintainability is consistently proven by various tests and exercises in a wide variety of climates. Operational deployments have been conducted in Arctic, desert, tropical, and temperate conditions. During these deployments, the A-10 has consistently demonstrated the ability to fly sortie rates in excess of 4 sorties per day while maintaining mission-capable rates well above 90%. This concludes our demonstration today. We hope it has given you an insight into the capabilities of the A-10. The A-10 was designed to be and is an excellent close air support weapon system. Responsiveness, simplicity, survivability, and lethality allow the A-10 to do its important close air support job more effectively and efficiently. On behalf of the Commander, Tactical Air Command, I hope you have enjoyed this brief look at the performance of the A-10 Thunderbolt II. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask either myself or Captain Betts. Thank you.
Penetrating right through the clouds, ladies and as he does a roll, exiting out at the far right-hand side, bending that airplane around, creating a 7G force inside that airplane, his body having to withstand 7 Gs of force. So you know that the state-of-the-art aircraft that are being used now in the armed forces in Canada also has state-of-the-art pilots. And Bob Wade, indeed, a gentleman on the ground and a magnificent pilot in the air, now bringing it around the far side and bringing it right towards Show Center, that beautiful CF-18. Coming right at Show Center now, the landing light on, wheels extended, pulls that stick back, and the vapor trails from the wing. And allow it to penetrate any kind of weather, all the way up and all the way down, and keeping that aircraft at all times now within the view of the spectator. Bob bends it around in another 7G turn from the left, experiencing 7 times his weight in the cockpit. And now bringing it through Show Center with a series of rolls. Dedicating this performance to Lieutenant Colonel Al Brown, affectionately known to his men as Red Lead. And now up through the clouds goes Bob Wade and that CF-18 high overhead. I have a radio here, and I'm going to try and contact Bob and have him talk, and I'll put it over the microphone so that all on the ground can see it and hear it. And now through Show Center, and to the right, and the vapor trails coming off the wing because of the collective speed of that aircraft through this forced air. And that indeed is 7.5 Gs as he reverses it now and goes off to the far, completing what can be called a lazy 8. And bending it around at the far right-hand side, bringing that airplane down below the clouds and in front of the crowd again. This airplane, definitely the Top Gun, definitely the state-of-the-art. And it belongs to you, ladies and gentlemen. It belongs to Canada. And what a gentleman flying it. Down through Show Center now. Cleaning it up computerized inside that aircraft. And now bending it again on a square corner, bringing it right down the show line. What a magnificent demonstration. On board that airplane, the radar by the Hughes APG-65, definitely state-of-the-art radar. He can pinpoint an automobile on the ground and zero that radar in on that automobile and nothing else. Coming through Show Center now, the CF-18 of the Canadian Forces. Suit. And the G-suit that they wear in those aircraft put pressure on certain points of the body to keep the blood from draining, because at 7 Gs, 7 times your weight, the blood will drain from your head, from your arms, from your legs. And the G-suit will keep that from happening because it puts pressure on certain main arteries of the body. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the slow flight characteristics of this aircraft. At 105 knots, Bob brings this airplane very, very carefully down the runway. His frontal vision all gone now. He can no longer see where the airplane is going. Only his peripheral vision off the side, and the radar, and the electronics in the airplane enable him to do this maneuver. All the way around a 360-degree turn. I'm going to contact Bob now in the airplane. Bob Wade, do you have a copy on the announcer? And we're watching you now at the far side on the turn, and what a magnificent low show you are putting on for us. The crowd here is absolutely thrilled.
Well, thanks, Johnny. It's unfortunate with the weather that we have to do the flat show, but at least we get the opportunity to see our new fighter fly.
Absolutely, Bob. Thank you very much. What a magnificent demonstration you're putting on. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Bob Wade. While he's holding that aircraft at that critical point, at that critical altitude and critical attitude, he has time to talk to you and time to tell you how much he would like to have put on the high show, but he wanted to definitely show this aircraft off to you because indeed, it does indeed belong to you. What a magnificent airplane. Look at that. That's what you call absolute brute force and maximum control. From this maneuver, he usually kicks in the afterburners and takes it straight up. Now, cleaning it up and bringing it down on the far side. 32,000 pounds of thrust is like being pushed in the center of the back by 16 tons. And it takes quite a man to take that, and physically, Bob is as agile as the aircraft itself. And now, from the left-hand side, bringing it in, over the threshold, down for a high-speed pass, boiling down out of the sky and over the threshold. Ladies and gentlemen, your CF-18. And Bob Wade wanted to make particular mention that this is for Lieutenant Colonel Al Brown of your Canadian Forces, known affectionately as Red Lead because of his red hair. Over the top now. Bob's up in the clouds and we can't see him, but he can top this off at 30,000 feet. And he'll be at 30,000 feet in less than 60 seconds from ground level. Over the top, he will penetrate back down through the clouds. Bob Wade, this is show control. Have you got a copy? Okay, we're waiting for your appearance again, sir.
Stage right this time.
From stage right, Bob Wade, the CF-18, right through show center. And a nice continuous roll. And bending that airplane around to the right. And now reversing it and bending it around to the left. All these turns, all of these maneuvers, experiencing G-forces on him because of the excessive speeds that this aircraft can go at. And now, lining it up. Okay, Bob brings it around from the left. And coming in from the left with that CF-18. I believe the gear is extended on it now, yes. And Bob will be touching it down. And then he'll be coming to show center. And he has a special salute for you. Your aircraft and your pilot will be saluting you very shortly from show center. And now, slowed way down. All the gear out, all the flaps down, slowing that aircraft down, bringing it down to a landing configuration, and just over the threshold, just barely touching down, and right on the white marks. What a magnificent piece of work. Bringing it down and bringing it towards show center. An aircraft of this capability and speed, look at how quickly he can bring it to a stop right at show center. Now he'll be turning that airplane towards show center, towards the crowd, the people here at Abbotsford. And Bob Wade is as much a gentleman on the ground as he is a magnificent pilot in that magnificent flying machine. Bringing it around now and stopping it. And watch closely on the right wing, just like an armed salute to you. He brings that wing up and salutes the crowd at Abbotsford, Canada. Wave back to him. What a magnificent man and a magnificent flying machine. You have a lot to be proud of, Canada. The CF-18 is yours. And with men like that to fly it, what else can be said? I give the microphone now back to Bob Singleton.
Thank you, Johnny Kazian. Ladies and gentlemen, that's your airplane. He's just looking after it for you. Tender loving care. He washes it every Sunday morning. What a great pilot and a great airplane. We're going to have a great helicopter act for you here in just a few seconds. Yeah, we're just going to check here and find out when he's going to be off. And then coming up is the United States Air Force F-16 demonstration, followed by the Canadian performance at speeds up to 50 knots indicated with relative wind from any direction. Watch now as a series of high-speed sideward and rearward flight maneuvers. Look at what Mr. Lee can do with this MDHC 500. The next maneuver is a stabilized hover, a 360-degree hovering turn with a hesitation at each 90-degree point is performed to demonstrate hover stability and precise tail rotor controllability. From the precision hover, a climbing flat spin. This is a maximum rate left pedal flat spin with a maximum performance vertical climb at takeoff power. Experienced helicopter pilots will recognize that this maneuver is performed using critical left pedal against maximum main rotor torque and demonstrates the unsurpassed tail rotor authority of this series aircraft. the out-of-ground effect hover followed by a rapid rate vertical pitch down. These maneuvers demonstrating out-of-ground effect hover stability, the ability of the aircraft to recover from extreme attitudes, and the ability of the aircraft to accelerate quickly in any attitude. After that climbing procedure turn, a low-level high-speed pass, performed at 156 knots indicated to demonstrate the very high power of the MDHC 500 series. Following the pass, a high G-force vertical cyclical climb is initiated. During this climb, airspeed is allowed to dissipate to near zero while the aircraft is held in an extreme vertical attitude. Another high-speed pass and a climbing procedure. Turn the next maneuver performed is a loop. Up he goes. At no time during this maneuver will any performance structure or component limitation be exceeded. The loop is performed effortlessly by the MDHC 500. After witnessing this loop, there is no doubt as to the unsurpassed maneuverability or structural integrity of the MDHC 500. Another procedure turn, and now a series of high G-force rapid left and right roll reversals is performed. These maneuvers will demonstrate the aircraft's excellent response to fast controlled inputs, rapid roll rates, and a high degree of maneuverability.
From Hysham, Montana, your narrator for today's demonstration. This afternoon, you will see an F-16 Fighting Falcon, the Air Force's newest fighter aircraft, perform a flight demonstration to illustrate its outstanding performance capabilities. The first Fighting Falcon entered the operational inventory of the Tactical Air Command in 1979. And today, the United States has F-16 units in the Tactical Air Command, United States Air Forces in Europe, and the Pacific Air Forces, as well as the Air National Guard and the Air Force Reserves. On your right, Major Rowland has begun the takeoff roll. In a variety of backgrounds, ranging from bright sky to dull overcast. Major Rowland is now repositioning his aircraft as he prepares to demonstrate the low altitude, high airspeed capability of the Fighting Falcon. As he passes show center, he will be traveling over 500 miles per hour. Following this repositioning maneuver, Major Rowland will demonstrate the excellent rolling performance of the F-16 by performing 3 rapid rolls as he passes by. As he approaches from the right, Major Olin will demonstrate the extremely tight, high-G turning capability of the F-16. At show center, he will bank sharply and perform a 360-degree turn with a radius of less than 1,400 feet. It is this kind of turning performance which gives the F-16 its well-deserved reputation as the most maneuverable fighter in the world today. Following this repositioning maneuver, Major Olin will demonstrate the crisp handling characteristics of the F-16 by performing a 4-point roll as he flies past show center. Major Oland is now slowing his aircraft in preparation for a slow-speed pass. While the F-16 can fly at over twice the speed of sound, it can also be easily flown in the slow flight regime. As he passes the crowd, Major Olaf will be traveling at 150 miles per hour. From the slow flight, he will retract his landing gear and perform another repositioning maneuver. Major Oland is now beginning a series of turns which will inscribe a square over the field. At each corner, he will demonstrate maximum performance high-G turns of 90 degrees. On each side of the square, he will perform an aileron roll.